hope you had a good break. That last session was incredible. I think it was amazing to hear Director Cooker's story. He was so authentic and all the stuff he shared, and thank you, Christopher, for leading that. And obviously your own presentation, so interesting. People come on in, have a seat. We are getting started. It's always a challenge to get people back in, but I see the room is pretty full. Awesome. For everyone in the room, we know change is the only constant. So many changes have been going on since last year. AI boom, geopolitical tensions, one of the most unique and interesting presidential elections, and us joining forces with MasterCard. As I was thinking about change, I was just thinking about one of the big changes I saw last year. So I live in San Francisco, and one of the things that really excite me is taking Waymos there. For those of you who don't know, Waymos are the self-driving cars. And I remember when growing up in India, my first car, or the first car my parents had like manual transmission. You had to crank the window down by hand. And our second car was the one that had automatic windows. And I was like, oh my God, this is like the best thing ever. And now I'm sitting in a car that is self-driving, and I just don't even take Uber anymore. Now I'm waiting for the Waymo to have completely unnecessary conversation with me while I take the ride. That would be the next phase. But unfortunately, what has remained constant is the threat landscape. As we heard from Director Coker, we heard from Christopher, we see more threats, more risks, and more complexity. And Christopher mentioned earlier that another constant is that after spending billions of dollars, 184 billion to be exact, organizations still don't feel protected. In fact, what has this spend got us? A massive increase in the cost of cybercrime. The fact that this number starts with a T itself is astounding, let alone the 20% growth in 5 years. And where does it leave you? It leaves you with concerns about risk to you, your organizations, your supply chain, and your ecosystem. Do we think this is acceptable? I think, Christopher, you mentioned not acceptable. We don't believe in that. At Recorded Future, we believe this is not an acceptable outcome. We, as an industry, need to do better. Technology is supposed to simplify our life, but for defenders, it's only becoming more complex. There, you have more attack vectors to defend, more loopholes to close, more backdoors to worry about, more identities to manage, and SaaS apps to protect. At the same time, threat actors are getting more unrestrained, more efficient, and more sophisticated. And no class of attacks is more pervasive than ransomware. We are sick of hearing about the eventuality of ransomware attacks. And clearly, the attackers are not sick of launching these attacks. In fact, we were trying to figure out if we can create some sort of joke using ChatGPT. Even ChatGPT does not think that ransomware is a joking matter. Ransomware has become a billion-dollar enterprise. And if VCs were to put a valuation on ransomware as a service, it would be a unicorn. Last year alone, over $1 billion were paid in ransom. Director Coker mentioned that is double the amount that was paid the previous year. And that was publicly reported, as reported by a news arm, The Record. And the ransom amount only tells a small part of the story. The cost of ransomware is way higher. For organizations, the fall from ransomware can be devastating and can go way beyond the ransom payments that we hear about, which can include operational disruption, impact to brand reputation, loss of customers, legal and regulatory impact, and millions in financial losses. Last year's attack on MGM cost them over $100 million, and that was just one company. And it can take weeks to months and years to recover from the impact of ransomware attack, and for organizations, an excruciating journey through that process. And cyber criminals have been relentless in 2022-4. We see it in the daily news cycle. Our research arm, Insect Group, reported a 50% increase in cyber attacks from the second half of last year to the first half of this year. And most threat actors are in business after all. So they are constantly evolving and optimizing their efforts to figure out what works best. We want to highlight three key trends that we observed this year. First, a decrease in dwell times. We saw dwell times as low as 72 hours, a significant decrease from previous years where the median was around 9 days. Next, we have been observing the shift of focus from encryption to extortion and exfiltration. Threat actors are realizing that companies are investing in backup and recovery services, so they know that they have to make the victims feel the pressure in another way. We have heard examples where these threat actors threaten the end customers of organizations to make them feel the pressure and pay ransom. And lastly, the use of AI, whether it is to craft better phishing emails, to produce deep fakes, or launch simultaneous attacks. Threat actors are wasting no time in adopting AI to increase their efficiency. And threat actors are relentless. They only have to find one weakness, whereas organizations have to cover every gap while they are being attacked by ransomware from every angle. This visual conveys and captures the challenge. And when we ask global security leaders on their take, they echo these challenges while dealing with ransomware. They continue to be concerned about identity compromises despite implementing MFA, as attackers are developing new techniques, especially when it comes to compromising cloud infrastructure. Last year, Okta, a leading identity company, talked about cross-tenant impersonation, where the attackers use their IDP to federate to the target's true IDP and gain access. These and other sophisticated techniques, including deepfakes, voice phishing, and advanced social engineering, require a new approach to detection. Lack of visibility into unpatched software vulnerabilities, especially in external-facing assets, is another top concern. In fact, these were behind some of the largest scale campaigns in 2023. And lastly, the complexity of business ecosystems, which expands the attack surface way beyond their organization. Overall, every security leader highlighted the importance of being proactive when it comes to mitigating ransomware attacks. So we know all this, and a lot of it may not be news to you. So why is it so challenging to deal with ransomware attacks? Firstly, being proactive isn't easy. When you're inundated with a mountain of alerts, you're forced to stay on your heels. Secondly, ransomware attack lifecycle has so many actors, steps, tactics, techniques, and your detection tools can only look at crucial data in silos. Identity looking at credentials, your endpoint looking at IOCs, vulnerability scanners generating a long list of vulnerabilities that we all know, and you have to sift through all of this data manually to connect the dots. And lastly, none of these defenses work alone. They all need to come together in cohesion to deliver the outcomes. We spent a lot of time talking to clients, analysts, and industry experts to understand the missing pieces in a solution that brings organizations multiple steps ahead of the attackers. Over the last 6 months, we have been focusing on enhancing our ransomware capabilities to deliver a solution that is customized to your business and tech stack, integrated to your security workflows, targeted to elevate and prioritize the most mission-critical alerts, and automated where it leverages AI-driven data analysis and reporting to reduce manual effort. A solution that can easily connect the dots and make sense of threats that matter to your business. We know that threat intelligence is a critical part of modern defense, and we have been protecting organizations from threats of ransomware already. And that's why we are trusted by over 2,000 customers and 47 sovereign governments and some of the well-known brands in the world. Later in the day, you're going to hear from Rivian and CCB on how they're protecting their organization and country respectively from threats. I was thinking about an analogy to describe what we do for our clients, and my co-presenter Jamie inspired me to think of a sportsman. Now, I'm just going to be honest, I'm no sports fan. I'm a passive sports follower at best. So I asked my partner, and I got a fantastic baseball analogy. For those of you who are fans of baseball, know that it is almost superhuman to hit a fastball. It takes less than 400 milliseconds for a fastball to travel from the mound to the home plate. And a hitter has about 125 milliseconds to gauge the pitch and decide whether to go for it. It's less than the blink of an eye. So what makes great hitters hit the fastball? It's their ability to see into the future. Well, sort of. The hitters begin predicting the trajectory of the ball, of the pitcher's arm, before if the ball even leaves their hand. And this makes up for the fact the hitter won't even see the pitch before it's quarter the way towards him. That is what we enable our clients to do. We give you the foresight so you can act first and confidently to stop threats before they happen. That is to hit the ball every time, even if there's a changeup, a term I learned last week. And one of my favorite quotes from our customers is that recorded future helps their team be prophetic. And we believe with recorded future, everyone is a futurist. So today, we are excited about announcing our enhanced ransomware capabilities to help you see all the threats, see them first, and pinpoint, prioritize, and act. So you don't have to suffer another day worrying about having to pay ransom payouts, worrying about your data being posted on extortion sites, your business being taken down, or your organization's name showing up in headlines. These capabilities bring together our world-class sourcing, our intelligence graph, our unique ability to connect the dots to internal telemetry with collective insights, our world-class insect research, and recorded future AI, that it makes it easier for defenders to focus on actions that matter to their business. And now it's my pleasure to invite Jamie Zajac, our VP of Product, to talk about all these capabilities in detail.
Now, please welcome Vice President of Product Management for Recorded Future, Jamie Zajac.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kalpana. It's so great to see everyone here today. Many familiar faces that I've seen years and years in past or on calls, so it's great to get a chance to really spend time with everyone here. Our job in product is to take some of these problems, the ransomware problem and the challenges you face every day, and distill them into actual ways that our product can solve that and drive measurable impact on your security posture in the organization. So when we looked at the ransomware problem, and we sat down some time ago, we sat with many of you, our clients, to understand it, many other of our industry experts to understand why hasn't this problem really been solved? Why is it that despite many of you spending millions of dollars on security year after year, why are so many people still getting hit with ransomware? We wanted to know what could we do to actually give you confidence that when a ransomware attack comes at your organization, your controls and your defenses will stand up and be successful. And we wanted to understand what could we do to help you actually get ahead of the threat as opposed to waiting for it to come to you. This is what we've really done with our new ransomware intelligence launch today. Today we're launching the most comprehensive ransomware intelligence that exists. We look across the entire life cycle of ransomware, From some of the earliest stages with how ransomware groups are doing reconnaissance against your organization, how are they finding you and finding your vulnerabilities, to how they're gaining initial access into your environment, how they're moving around the network with the internal and lateral movements, and also how are they exfiltrating this data and using it to extort you to pay them. We put it all together into into our core product. A few weeks ago, I was on a plane flying home from an event that I was attending, and I was trying to come up with what I would say today. How would I have some really clever analogy or such to make the point hit home? So I was sitting on the plane. I was watching, it was Sunday, so I was watching some football on the little tiny TV that I got to stare at for however many hours the flight was. And I kept hearing the announcers talk over and over again about how much game tape each of the players would watch preparing for that game. How they would literally sit there and study their opponents, how they played, finding the holes that they could try to pick through. They would just spend hours watching this and studying the opponent. They'd then use that all week to practice so that it became muscle memory by the time the game day came, that they knew exactly what the opponent was going to do, exactly how they were going to operate to defend against that, and how they were going to try to win. In a lot of ways, I think that's what we've done with ransomware. We've studied the game tape to understand how the opponents act. We've produced the plan for how you can actually defend against this, and so that you can practice and be ready and actually get ahead, so that when you're faced with the adversary coming at you, you have the tools to actually win. So as part of this, we're happy to announce today 3 new capabilities to help you get even further ahead of ransomware. We have new insights into ransomware groups, how they operate, and their victims. We have a new ransomware risk profile, which helps you identify all of the risks specific to your organization around ransomware. And then we're supercharging it all with Recorded Future AI for ransomware. So let's jump into each one of these and how they work. So the first is some new insights into ransomware groups and how they operate. In a few moments, we're going to give a live demo. And yes, it will be a live demo of the actual product in front of 500 people on stage. Some people think I'm crazy, but that's what we're doing, and it's going to be awesome. But what we've done here is effectively studied the game tape and put that into product for how ransomware groups operate. So we've enhanced our ransomware landscape dashboard with new insights about the trends of where the groups are operating, how they're operating, as well as pulling in every victim, organized by industry, geography, and the ransomware group who attacked them. So you can filter and sort and understand exactly what's happening. When you find a relevant victim that's listed, relevant might be one of your subsidiaries, one of your peers, one of your third parties, or critical suppliers, we know that you have a lot of questions you need to answer. How are we impacted? Are any of our company data listed on that site? And so we're now automatically downloading all of the leaked file names from those ransomware extortion sites and analyzing them to see if your company name is mentioned, any of your company secrets are exposed, or any other sensitive information that you need to take care of. If you need to dig deeper, you'll now be able to access the ransomware extortion site in our secure browser through our sandbox with one click. I was demoing this capability for a few of our pre-release clients recently, and they talked to me about how much time this would save them. That currently, when they needed to access a dark website or a ransomware extortion site, they had to spin up a VM, configure the Tor browser. They had to find the latest onion link, because the threat actors love to change them every 42 seconds sometimes, it seems. And because they operated in a highly stringent security environment, something I'm sure many of you can relate to, they never quite knew if this environment was actually going to work when they needed it. And so being able to access this directly through Recorded Future with one click was going to save them time and give them incredible confidence that they knew their practices would work. I think this is something people are just going to love to use. You can take a look at it outside as well. The second is the ransomware risk profile. Now, if I was to go back to my football analogy for a moment, if you were preparing for a football game, say against the Washington Commanders, you probably wouldn't prepare by watching a documentary on the history of football, right? I mean, if you knew nothing about football, maybe like Kalpana, it might be better than nothing. Sorry, Kalpana. But in reality, you're going to want to study the actual opponent that you're going up against. You're going to watch the game tape of the Commanders, right? So why would you use very general intelligence as opposed to something that's specific and relevant for your organization? With the ransomware risk profile, we've developed a new way to help look at these threats that is specific to your organization. It takes everything we know about the threat landscape that's happening, the reconnaissance that they're doing against your organization, the initial access, the lateral movement that they're doing, as well as the exfiltration. And it makes it specific to your organization. So we've mapped it against your attack surface, your tech stack, the industry that you operate in, to give you that one specific view. All of this happens automatically. So it's all happening and presented to you in the dashboard. As we've studied these ransomware groups, we've found some really unique insights about how they operate. In a few moments, TJ, our colleague from Insict, is going to come up and dive much deeper. But one of the things we found is how the ransomware groups move around the network and some of the early stage malware that they dropped. So imagine for a moment that I could tell you 3 days in advance that you were going to get hit by ransomware. Right? What would you do with those 3 days? You'd probably do a whole lot. You'd make sure you have some defenses in place. You might finally find time to patch that critical vulnerability that's on the network for how they're going to get in. With some of the insights we've found about how the groups operate, there are times where we can do this. With our unique collective insights, we take every detection we see in your environment, from your EDR, from your email gateway, from your firewall. We automatically attribute to the relevant malware. And then if that malware is one of these early stage droppers that leads to ransomware later in the cycle, we can fire that alert. Say, hey, you've got a 3-day clock ticking on you for getting ransomware in your environment. Use those 3 days wisely. Pretty powerful stuff when you look at actually trying to get ahead of the ransomware threat versus waiting for it to come to you. The ransomware risk profile doesn't just look at the internal stage, it's looking at all of the attack vectors that exist. So we've also incorporated our identity intelligence into this dashboard. So if you see, one of the most common threat vectors that we see attackers using is buying credentials on the dark web and then simply logging into some of the most critical systems. We've known this for years, yet we haven't actually completely automated, as a group at large, automated the reset of those credentials, which is the effective way to neutralize that threat vector. So on the ransomware risk profile, we're pulling in all of the credentials that are specifically tied to products and crown jewel systems related to ransomware, put them front and center so they can be dealt with in a timely manner, and you can neutralize the threat. Okay, so I've talked a lot about how we have new insights into the ransomware groups and how they operate and their victims, the ransomware risk profile, making it all specific to you. But there's one more big thing that we're launching here today. So if I was to ask for a show of hands today about how many people in the room, either write or receive some sort of periodic intelligence report, I assume I'd get about 100% hands. Might be a biased audience in an intelligence conference, but don't ask a question you don't know the answer to. But anyways, it's becoming more and more common that everyone is using intelligence to drive their security program, to say, hey, how are we actually going to get ahead? What are the relevant threats? What do we need to do to mitigate that? The problem is it takes a lot of time to collect, analyze, validate, write the actual report, proofread the report, peer review the report, send out the report to the chain of people who need to review it. It takes a lot of time. Recorded Future has obviously always helped with this, automating much of the collection, the analysis, and as much of that life cycle as possible. And now we're ready to take it to the next level. So enter Recorded Future AI. Recorded Future AI is now enhanced with information specifically about your organization, your tech stack, your attack surface. All of the watch lists that you have in Recorded Future can now be utilized by Recorded Future AI. We've enhanced Recorded Future AI with all of the ransomware insights that we just talked about. So knowing what are the malware that lead to ransomware, knowing what those indicators are and those TTPs of the groups. And we've also enhanced Recorded Future AI with a full report writing capability. So it can automate the entire production and dissemination of the report for you. The goal is that Recorded Future AI can really now sit at the center of your threat intelligence team. You can ask it questions when you have a quick question from a colleague or from someone else that needs it. And now you can even use it to automate some of the recurring processes around producing a weekly report or a flash report when you're asked. And this is one of the things we will show live in just a few moments. We launched Recorded Future AI last year, and we were really proud to be the first AI for intelligence. And this year we're taking it to the next level, extending it even further, allowing it to do even more of the work that you need it to do for you. When we talked about what the reports in AI needed to have, we said, how do we make sure that the report is actionable? I don't want to produce a PDF that you just send off and just sits on a shelf and looks nice. I want to make sure that the intelligence we're producing is actionable and driving that across the organization. So we said in order for the intelligence to be actionable, it needed to be specific to your organization. So Recorded Future AI has all the information about your organization so that it can use that, it can make sure the report is tailored. You operate in this industry, you have these vulnerabilities, you have these peers, all of that's incorporated into the reports. We also knew that in order for intelligence to be actionable, it needed to be timely. So we made sure that Recorded Future AI can automate with up-to-the-minute intelligence that we have on a topic. No more the intelligence collection period was cut off on Wednesday afternoon because the analysts needed to write on Thursday, review on Friday, and finally you're reading it on Monday 4 or 5 days later. Now you can have that report automatically produced and delivered directly to your inbox whenever you need it. Every Monday morning, directly for a team meeting or your security stand-up, wherever you need it. Really excited for these capabilities. Looking forward to getting feedback from many of you as well as you use it to make sure that we're able to automate as much of that report production cycle as possible. So, some incredible new capabilities here. Ransomware insights, victimology data, opening securely in the sandbox, the ransomware risk profile, making it specific to you, as well as Recorded Future AI. We've really focused here on both improving existing workflows that many of you have, as well as introducing new workflows to help you get ahead of the threat. So if I was to go back to my football analogy that I started with, I'd say we've identified the opponent, who are the groups that are likely to target you. We've studied their game tape. We've produced the practice plan for the week. And ultimately, we've prepared you so that you can actually win in this threat or in this game against the actors. Everything here hinges on our core intelligence graph, our unique data collection, analysis, and insights that you all have access to. And we're continuing to invest and build this out with a focus on unique data that no one else has that we can acquire as Recorded Future. One of the biggest users of our intelligence graph is our INSIC team, our own in-house threat research team that uses the graph to hunt for new threats, to analyze how groups operate, and reflect that back in the product that you all have access to. So here to discuss some of these insights that our INSIC team has found with some of the ransomware groups, how they operate, and how you can put that to work, as well as how you can find this within the platform yourself, is TJ Nelson, one of the directors on the INSIC team, who will walk you through it. Thank you.
Please welcome Director of Armor for INSIC Group at Recorded Future, TJ Nelson.
You crack the ceiling. This love is an open sky. Can't shake this feeling. I want you to know.
Thank you, Jamie. So I want to start my section today by highlighting why ransomware is a top cybersecurity issue for organizations, using an all too common scenario. Now, there are more than 125 million full-time workers in the United States, and chances are you're probably one of them. Many of those workers start their day with the same routine. They get up, they grab a cup of coffee, and then they head to the computer to check their email inbox. Most of the time, this is just a typical day. But what happens when the worst day happens? You come to your computer and you're greeted by a calling card from an attacker. The calling card says your data is encrypted, and unless you pay up, we will post it online for the whole world to see. The reports you're working on, gone. You're having trouble contacting your IT department, and to top it all off, your outage has been reported to by social media. What are you going to do? Now, this may have happened to you in the past, or could happen to you in the future. With well over 2,000 ransomware incidents tracked this year alone, the odds are not in your favor. Recorded Future has seen an average of 9 incidents per day across 85 countries, with the US, UK, and Canada as the top countries on the receiving end of these ransomware attacks. And the damage is real. These companies find themselves dealing with outages, data loss and exposure, financial burdens, and reputation damages. But what if you could predict when this was going to happen, giving you that critical time to protect, mitigate, and respond? Well, the INSIC Group from Recorded Future is constantly researching ransomware tooling and groups to understand how we can leverage intelligence to help you predict when these ransomware attacks are going to affect your organization. Recently, we did research on a prolific ransomware group called Reseda. They've been around since early 2023. This group performs double extortion, which means in addition to data encryption, they also steal your data. And they'll threaten to leak it if you don't pay the ransom. So if you have backups, you're still not in the clear. The group operates as a ransomware as a service, which means they rent out their tooling to several operators to use for a small fee. And they like to target HR departments for PII, personal identification information. This is passports and driver's licenses. On their extortion site, there's already over 140 victim posts, and new ones are added on a regular basis. When it comes to ransomware, Reseda, they're one of the biggest threats out there. Fortunately, though, with our visibility into the threat landscape, we are able to map out their early operations and attack chain. Starting with the initial infection, where a victim searches for a tool like Microsoft Teams on a popular search engine, and they get a fake download link. So instead of Teams, they're going to get a malicious payload download link. And believing that this is a legitimate site, the victim will download and install this software, but it's actually Cleanup Loader. Cleanup Loader is an early stage malware that we believe is exclusively used by Reseda operators. Once installed, Cleanup Loader then communicates with its command and control to relay information to its backend panel. And then that backend panel connects and communicates with its monitoring server used for infrastructure monitoring. This allows the actors to manage and plan their operations. And all of this happens before ransomware deployment. And it provides you with several points of detection and response that can disrupt the attack chain before encryption. With our comprehensive understanding of the Reseda operations, we can focus on the tactics, techniques, and procedures used by the group. At initial access, we can focus on the use of typo swatting domains and malvertising to lure victims to download Cleanup Loader. During post-infection, we know that Cleanup Loader stays in the environment for around 30 days, laterally moving, gaining privileges, and stealing sensitive data. And then when all that work is complete, then they deploy ransomware, initiating the impact phase of the attack chain. And there's a short countdown from there before the victim data is posted on their extortion site. But identifying Cleanup Loader as an early part of the attack chain can help us predict potential ransomware activity and break the attack chain before impact. In the Recorded Future platform, we can actually identify the Cleanup Loader C2s. And we can track the communications between the command and control and victim organizations. Then, with this critical insight, we can identify potential Reseda victims before the ransomware is even deployed. This gives the victims time to defend their networks and evict the attackers with minimal damage. Using our approach, we've been able to find a number of Reseda victims even before they were posted on the Reseda extortion website. And time is important here. Our research shows there could be up to a 30-day delta in between the initial infection and victim publication. However, these numbers vary based on a number of factors. And using this data, the goal here is to identify the target of your organization at the initial command and control communication phase, giving you that 30-day dwell time to formulate a response. These data points give you that precious time to take action. So you're probably asking yourself right now, how can I action this intelligence? Well, as my colleagues will show you later on in this talk, we have a collection of tools in the platform to help you with this. So as a part of our threat intelligence module, we have ransomware intelligence, which is your one-stop shop for everything ransomware. From the Victimology dashboard to ransomware profiles, this tool will help your organization gain quick and actionable understandings of the various ransomware and ransomware actors. As you saw above, the Network traffic analysis can help you identify malicious infrastructure tied to ransomware and a lot of other threats. This gives your organization an early visibility to the threats that are communicating with your networks. And then we also have the daily ransomware roundup, which will give you a quick readout of the ransomware attacks and new ransomware families. The identity intelligence module lets you know when your credentials have been compromised by malicious actors. And we know credentials are an easy early access vector for ransomware operators. The vulnerability intelligence module helps organizations understand the risks in their third-party software, which can be used in ransomware operations. And lastly, the attack surface intelligence module helps organizations understand their network weak points and suggest ways to harden them. Powered by the Insight Group research, the Recorded Future platform, and these tools, you are well on your way to predicting ransomware attacks before they happen. Now, I'm excited to release our latest research on Reseda, which is available on the website today. This report gives you in-depth knowledge around the group and how to detect them early in the attack chain. Now, feel free to use this QR code to get your copy now. And don't worry about the QR code. You can trust us. We're the good guys. The Insight Group is always researching new and current ransomware families to bring this intelligence to the platform so that we can do this for more than just Reseda ransomware. So your question is, can we do these for other ransomware as well? The answer is yes. We've been able to use this methodology for a lot of ransomware families. With Bien Lian, for example, we can detect early attack chain malware to get similar results. And we have other techniques for a broad range of other ransomware threats. Using the tools and techniques we've made available, you can identify the pattern of attack to gain a deep understanding of how these ransomware operations work. Now, I encourage you to read through our new ransomware profiles to understand the type of data we've been able to curate around ransomware families. From Inc. to Play, Ransom Hub, all the way to Black Basta. You can leverage our tools to defend your networks. Now, I'd love to invite Kathleen and Tyler to show you what this all looks like live in the Recorded Future platform.
Now, please welcome Technical Product Marketing Manager for Recorded Future, Kathleen Kuksma, and Director of Product Management for Recorded Future, Tyler Bradshaw.
Thanks, TJ. So I'm Kathleen, Technical Marketing Manager, and since Jamie brought up football, I'll mention that I am a sad New York Jets fan.
And I'm, I'm Tyler Bradshaw, Director of Product Management, and not that into football.
Just fine. Luckily, we are not here to talk about sports, although I am excited about my New York Mets doing really well in the postseason. Okay, got a few. Cheers there. But I promise Tyler and I are even more excited to walk through live all the updates that Jamie and TJ have talked about. Because now, more than ever, Recorded Future is even more equipped to guide your teams from detection to mitigation of ransomware threats. Imagine you are on a beach. Just kidding. Your day probably looks a little bit more like what TJ described. You're sitting at your desk drinking a coffee, matcha, maybe water with lemon, although this person clearly is not drinking enough water. And during that time, while you're hopefully enjoying your caffeine, you notice that there's an alert for one of your suppliers on a third party, or one of your third parties, referenced on a ransomware extortion site. You're likely gonna have 3 different questions. First, what information from my organization may have been leaked as a part of that attack? Second, how are we susceptible to the same type of ransomware attack? And third, probably most importantly, what can we do to mitigate against those risks? And the answers to all these questions are really going to highlight how important it is to be proactive. So Tyler, let's take a look at how these new updates can help you and us answer all of these questions.
Absolutely. So let's go through those questions one by one. So the first question of what data from my organization was potentially posted used to be quite a process to track down. But now I can use the new Victimology tab. Recorded Future now has comprehensive victimology data across many different ransomware groups. I can filter the victims to just those within my industry and geography. I can set specific timeframes, look at specific groups, and I can even filter to just those victims that actually had their data leaked. I can also search, so I will use that to look up the supplier that we got the alert on. Now, it looks like our supplier was impacted by Black Basta, which matches the alert that we got earlier. Now, I didn't see any kind of indication that any of our files were referenced on the extortion site, but I wanted to double check. So now I can easily dive in and look at the actual file paths directly within the platform. And any file paths that potentially mention brands or secrets are automatically pulled out. Now, I can search here as well, and it doesn't look like our brand was referenced, so I think we're in the clear.
Well, that's a positive. And it's helpful to know that Recorded Future is automatically reading through those files to understand if any of your brands are referenced or if there are any potential secret mentioned files, which is a lot better than the old process of using Control F, and then if you have to spell live, I mean, that's a whole disaster. I should mention as well that Recorded Future is also telling us the first post date as well as when that data was first leaked, which is really important to know the difference between the two of those. And although, as Tyler mentioned, we're not seeing our third party or our own company referenced in the files of that supplier, I'm interested in looking at the actual posting.
Yeah. So now I can safely navigate to the ransomware site using our secure browser. Now, as Jamie mentioned earlier, this used to be a pain to do, as we would have to fire up a VM, load the Tor browser, find the correct onion link, which of course are just long strings of letters and numbers. But now within a single click, I can open a pre-configured sandbox environment to see the ransomware site itself, browse the files, see the ransom note, all without exposing my organization's traffic. In this case, looks like I can browse through the different file paths directly that were leaked.
Yeah, I like the convenience of being able to access this data really quickly and safely, I should mention. And while our victimology table will already populate the files that I likely care the most about, being able to view this data yourself is extremely valuable. And this was a really big ask from our clients, and from some of the early feedback calls I joined, a lot of you were excited about this, so I hope the same is true for everyone in the audience. So now that we have an answer to our first question of what data of mine has been posted, luckily right now the answer seems to be nothing, let's move on to that second question. How are we susceptible to the same type of ransomware attack? Now, I want to learn more about that specific ransomware group, Black Basta, that attacked this third party. And just like the cast of Friends trying to pivot their couch in a tight staircase, sounds like we need to pivot to Black Basta's intelligence card.
It's a little easier here. So Recorded Future has expanded the intelligence about how specific ransomware groups operate and included all of that information in a new tab called Ransomware Profile. So now on a single tab, I can understand what the group does, who they are, what they do, and who they target. So to answer the second question of what they do, I can use this new TTP matrix to examine. So this TTP matrix now includes the group's exact methods and TTPs. Similar to how Jamie mentioned the importance of football teams viewing the game tape to prepare for a live game, I can now do the same type of preparation. I can filter to just see the vulnerabilities that this group has been known to target, as well as the specific products that they're also known to target. Now, anything that is highlighted in yellow means that that TTP was found within our watch lists or collective insights, which are detections found within our SIM, SOAR, EDR, email gateway, IAM, whatever XDR is, and any other acronym that you can come up with. So in short, seeing yellow means that we are potentially vulnerable to that TTP.
Yeah, and this new format provides a lot more information on exactly how that ransomware group operates, and most importantly, how this ties back into our own environment and what we care about tracking the most. We also have the option to look at any recent victims for Black Basta here. So for any of the ransomware intelligence cards, we'll see that. And we can see in this case that this includes many more companies than only our third party. So between the TTP mapping and looking at the recent victims of Black Basta, we have a lot more useful context for understanding how Black Basta operates, and we're beginning to answer that second question of how are we susceptible to the same type of ransomware attack. But Black Basta is only one group, and there's many other ransomware groups out there. So I'm curious to know about our exposure to all other ransomware groups.
Yep. So that is where the ransomware risk profile comes in. It gives us insights into the specific risks that all ransomware groups pose for our organization and will help us get the full answer to that second question of how are we susceptible to the same type of attack. The ransomware risk profile is different for every organization and includes data from our attack surface scans, identity detections, watch lists, malicious traffic analysis, and collective insights. This top section here serves as an executive summary highlighting our organization's riskiest assets and most prevalent ransomware threats. And then down below here, I can see our potential exposure at the 4 different stages of the ransomware lifecycle: reconnaissance, initial access, the internal stage, and finally the extortion stage.
And it looks like we have many more ransomware groups to worry about than only Black Basta. I'm seeing Lockbit up there as well. And it's good to know that we can start tracking some of those exposures very early into the life cycle. So let's dig into each stage a little bit further, starting with reconnaissance. What do I need to know here?
Yeah, so the reconnaissance stage shows us how threat actors can gather information about our organization that they can potentially exploit. So based on our attack surface scans, it looks like we've got some vulnerabilities that some ransomware groups exploit, or in many cases, multiple ransomware groups exploit, particularly for some of our Exchange servers. So for these vulnerabilities, I'll send them over to my vulnerability management team so that they know to prioritize patching these specific CVEs.
It's too many ransomware groups listed there for my own liking. And we know every organization struggles with trying to prioritize vulnerabilities. So having the ability to quickly prioritize and understand which vulnerabilities are detected in your own attack surface and are actively exploited by ransomware groups is going to help with that prioritization. We've also learned over the last few years that ransomware really is an ecosystem. And a large part of successful ransomware attacks start with initial access brokers selling access to stolen credentials. So Tyler, what are some of our top concerns here?
Yeah, so the initial access stage is where threat actors could get in using stolen credentials. Now, it looks like I can see some credentials here that give access to some of our internal services, including our VPN. Now, I should note that I already have an automatic password reset in place via Okta workflows when these identities are detected by identity intelligence, but it's good to report on the overall number of infections.
And in addition to resetting the password, the metadata for that impacted user provides all the compromised host details, which will help our incident response team actually remove the malware from the impacted device. Because you can reset the password all you want, but if the malware is still there, that credential is still going to keep being reposted, even if they reset their password, which then that's a little sad, but waste of time. So now that we know about some of the top vulnerabilities in our attack surface that have been exploited by ransomware groups, and potential ways that threat actors could get into our environment via those stolen credentials, I'm curious about what findings we have within the internal stage.
Yeah. So the internal stage highlights any kind of ransomware precursors that were detected on our network. Now, I am seeing some malware families here, and I'm less concerned about Cobalt Strike because we already have some good detections in place. So I am interested in diving into System BC a little bit more. Now, it looks like it's associated with Cuba, Black Basta, Play, a few others. Here I can easily see the IP address and the port that is communicating with their command and control servers. So I'll reach out to our engineering team to confirm that they've blocked access to these command and control servers. But I also would share these hunting packages to make sure that we can detect any future activity.
And hunting packages really are crucial, especially for new groups. So I'm curious, does anyone in the audience remember Black Matter ransomware? I'm seeing a few head nods, so thank you for indulging me. I mentioned this group because Insect's group, so TJ and his team, had published a hunting package for Black Matter before Black Matter actually targeted anyone successfully and posted that on their extortion site. It was a really great example of how we're helping our clients be much more proactive. And finally, and last but not least, we're on to the extortion stage.
Yeah, so here Recorded Future is monitoring ransomware extortion websites to see if our company or third parties were a direct victim or collateral in any attacks. And fortunately, we're not seeing our organization here.
That is definitely a good thing. So overall, with the ransomware risk profile, this provides a great view through all 4 stages of your top risks to the overall ransomware ecosystem. And I now have a much more complete answer to the question of how are we susceptible to the same type of ransomware attack? So Tyler took us through a lot already, but it's time now for the best part, which is summarizing everything we just covered for leadership. So we know from our clients that if you all could automate one part of your job, a lot of you said reporting. And having written many reports for the US government, I can also say, yes, I would have loved to have automated that process a little bit more. Not the critical thinking part, but the initial part. And now Recorded Future has pre-built templates within Recorded Future AI, and obviously importantly, the content to go with it to make the report writing process even easier than it was before. We have a few new templates here, including the ransomware report. You can guess which one we're going to run. A threat landscape report, and then a general report that you can customize any way you'd like. So Tyler, let's see how this works in action.
Yeah, so this new capability is perfect for answering that last question of what can we do to mitigate some of those risks. Now, given that we want to summarize the top threats and recommended actions related to ransomware, I'm going to choose the aptly named ransomware report. Now, Recorded Future AI is confirming the report type and then asking what time coverage I'd like for the report. So let's go with the past week.
As I mentioned before, these are not only just templates. Recorded Future is providing the content for the report itself based on your own organization, so your watch list, as well as information from our intelligence graph. This means that everything that we just reviewed in the dashboards is available in written form to easily update and edit. And oftentimes, the report can be generated in just a few minutes.
Yep, that actually generated pretty quickly for a live demo.
Awesome.
So from here, what I can do is, now that I've got this report, I can copy the text, add my own flair, and send it up the chain, noting that we are going to discuss it later today during our stand-up. I can also schedule the report so that this is automatically generated on a weekly or monthly basis, and I can set the specific day and time.
I really like the ability to be able to schedule. And overall, these reports will hopefully save you all, I should say hopefully, they will save you all a lot of time. Because Recorded Future had already decreased the time that you all needed to spend on that collection part, right, the early part of the intelligence lifecycle, leaving much more time for analysis. And now Recorded Future AI is even speeding up, obviously, that not so fun process of writing reports, although maybe some of you all really do enjoy writing. It depends on the day. And this will allow you all to focus more on remediation, the personalized recommendations, and critical thinking. And this type of update is especially important for all of you who get really last-minute report turnarounds. I'm sure no one can relate to being asked for something in a few hours or now, so these new AI templates will help there. So in just a few minutes with a live demo, we were able to move from an initial alert for a third party referenced on an extortion site to answering those 3 questions. 1, what information of mine could have been leaked as a part of that incident? 2, how are we susceptible to the same types of ransomware attacks? And 3, how can we mitigate against some of those risks? So as you can see, the updates for Recorded Future's platform make it much easier to assess and mitigate potential ransomware threats, particularly from reconnaissance to extortion, and putting it all together in a report. And with that, I will throw the football, the baseball, whatever other sports analogy I can come up with, back to Jamie.
All right. Well done, well done. Not easy to do a live demo in front of so many people, so when you see them later at lunch and they're just like, thank goodness that all worked, give them a thanks. You can tell we have a lot of confidence in our product to do this demo here of newly released features, which I think is also a good way to remind you that everything we showed you isn't just a demo. This is all live, fully shipped, generally available to each one of you to use in your Recorded Future portal today. So log in with your own account, visit one of our demo stations in the loop, hit up any of the Recorded Future people with the little black badges, and we're happy to answer questions, go a little bit deeper with it as well. So I think it's important here to kind of summarize what we saw and where we went. So before Kalpana comes back up, let's just kind of look at again what we saw. So we know that ransomware is one of the biggest threats that are facing companies and governments around the world today. We've now expanded our product to tackle this threat head on. So with new capabilities to understand the global ransomware landscape, new capabilities to see if any of your vendors or critical suppliers are compromised and to assess the impact to you, new ways to see the specific ransomware threats your organization has to truly shift left, and finally, supercharging it all with Recorded Future AI so that it's not just your intelligence team that has this information, but everyone in your organization who plays a role in defending. So I want to give a huge thank you to all of the people who helped make this a reality today, everyone at Recorded Future, all of the many clients that have helped us get to this point with your incredible feedback and insights that you share with us. And I look forward to having deeper discussions with many of you over lunch, over dinner, or in follow-up sessions as well to really help you put this to work so you can get the most benefit out of it. So thank you so much for your attention here today.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for your attention. Hopefully, that was super exciting. And give it up one more time for Jamie, TJ, Tyler, and Kathleen. It's no easy feat. And thanks to the entire engineering, product design, product marketing team who put this all together. And we are really excited about these capabilities. As I mentioned earlier, we do take this seriously, and we as an industry need to do better. And I really think that using these capabilities is finally going to help organizations get ahead and mitigate ransomware attacks. And as Jamie mentioned, these are all available in the platform today in your threat intelligence module, enhanced by identity and ASI module. So please stop by. Thank you.